Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Community Development, Housing, and General Government Committee meeting to order. Our practice is to take the consent agenda first, and I'd like to check and see if there are people here who would like to speak to any one of the demolition orders. Is there anyone here to speak on 3853 Sawyer Street? No. 4210 Shamel Street? Shamel. Okay. Yeah. 239 Lodge Street? No. 1515 Darien Boulevard? Okay. 837 West 12th Street?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We'll call you up in a minute. And let's see, the 1472 Addison Avenue has been pulled. Is that correct? Okay. Has been brought into compliance. And then 836 North Cameron Avenue, Councilmember McIntosh would like to pull that. So do I have any other items on consent that anyone would like pulled? If not,
I move for approval.
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Thank you. Ms. Caldwell, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Would you like to come join us? But first, we'll get Mr. Brooks or Ms. Stimson to give us a report. That is C2D. Yeah, just go ahead and sit right there for the time being. Oops. C2D. Ms. Stimson.
Okay. The property at 837 West 12th Street was inspected, and a hearing was held on May 11th of 2004, after which a residential repair or vacate order was issued. The hearing was held on June the 7th of 2004, and a repair or vacate order was issued. It expired August 5th of 2004, and as of August 5th, 2004, the property was vacant. It became eligible for demolition based on the 6-month rule on February 2nd of 2005. Ms. Caldwell contacted Mr. Brooks on September the 4th regarding the structure and was told to come to today's meeting where she could address the committee. The estimated cost of repairs on this particular structure is $15,200, and the fair market value of the structure is $8,090, which makes this the cost of repair more than 50% of the value. Based on those of the above information, we recommend that the ordinance be adopted to demolish the structure.
Thank you, Ms. Stimson. Okay, and Ms. Caldwell.
Okay,
If you'll give your full name and address, please.
Okay, it's Sandra Patricia Caldwell. The address is 612 West 23rd Street, and my mother, Mamie Caldwell, is the owner, but I have power of attorney for her, so I'm representing her at today's meeting.
Okay, please go ahead.
And the reason I'm here is because I had initially, this process started off in probably 2001. In 2001, I had made application for an investor loan for the city to come out and look at the property, and I paid $250 for that. But No one ever got back in touch with me about that process, but I do have the letters that I received, and I had started work on this because the list that they have that's listed as a lot of the unfit stuff, a lot of the work has been done because siding has been put on the house. The house has been completely electrically wired. The porch has been fixed. The flue that was on there, it has been repaired. Most of the inside interior is the only thing that had not been touched because I was working and I lost my job, so therefore the money that I had invested in, I didn't have any more money to invest in it. So that's where the process stopped. I approached Kelly Mitter at Habitat for Humanity because I live in the Boston Thurman neighborhood. I'm the president of that neighborhood association. So I approached him about purchasing a property or possibly using the property for Habitat. He had indicated that he had gotten in touch with someone in city government that they had indicated that they could not use the property because the property was so close to the expressway that it was not environmentally feasible for them to do that because they were using HUD money, and HUD money would not allow that. But there are other programs that are in the process, that's my understanding. It's basically the interior need cabinets and some other work done in it because I thought, we were into saving houses and not tearing them down. And I was just here to just see if there was anything possible that could be done. And I had an investor that had approached me about purchasing the property, but he backed off because he had said that the day that he had called someone in the office and they had indicated that there were a lot of problems and a lot of things that had not been addressed with the house. And so they were backing off because they didn't want to even come to the meeting because they backed off. So I'm here to find out what the final decision is.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brooks, Ms. Stinson, either one. Good evening.
Good evening.
When is the last time we looked at this house to verify that the repairs that she stated has been done? Do we have a date of the last time we visibly looked at this house? Because we all know, and I'm not saying that you didn't do them, Ms. Caldwell,
Yeah.
When the property owners come and they say they've done something, we have to validate that as well. And if you,
receipts as well.
that's okay too, but I still have to have, that's their job.
Okay.
To go out and be the eyes and to see if it has, been done and done according to the specifications or whatever of the inspection profile. Mr. Brooks.
Yes, according to Code Enforcement Records, the last inspection date was 10/20/2010. And it was at that point it was placed in the 1-year file for demolition consideration, which meant it would wait out that 1-year period. So that would have been in 2011. So the last date that it was inspected was October the 20th of 2010.
Thank you. Ms. Caldwell, when did you do the date of these improvements that you've listed?
They were in 2004. They were 2004. One was 2001. This is where I had the siding put on the house. And 2004, I had the steps done. I got to...
Mr. Brooks, maybe I'm missing it. Was there siding in this?
That's one of.
In this?
There are a host of violations.
Yeah.
In 2001, a number of violations were repaired.
Okay, and the siding must have been probably one of them because it's not on this list.
Yes, to give an example, repaired door at rear exit, the foundation, the porch flooring, porch railings, house numbers, removed heavy undergrowth. So there were a number of violations that were repaired, but if you recall, if there are unfit violations, one unfit violation will still
Continue the process.
provide this process for continuance.
Okay.
And that's what had occurred because you still have remaining, based on the last inspection, about It looks to be in excess of 10 minor violations
Yeah.
and about 6 unfit
Unfit.
violations.
Yeah.
I have a question. The only letter that I have is the letter that's dated May 10, 2004. And this letter says residential complaint and notice of hearing. The time that Mr. Brooks is talking about, I have no correspondence to validate that. So do they send out correspondence to let you know that this has been done, or they don't have to?
No, there would not have been any additional letters sent. What the owner got was the initial notice of violation. There was a hearing held and the order issued. After that point, it's a series of inspections, and if violations are repaired, it is the responsibility of the property owner to notify staff that violations are repaired and allow access. Otherwise, the inspector will make visits to the property and document what they're able to observe from the exterior. So if the office was not contacted regarding interior repairs and arrangements made for an interior inspection, we would not have that documented.
And I guess, and Chair, if you'll indulge me, because this is in the North Ward. So what we're saying is this house has been vacant since 2004 or 1?
2001.
2001. And Ms. Caldwell, just, you know, and I'm sure you know, this is part of the process, what we have to do, because neighbors and communities, citizens, they call us, and then we have to go, you know, and look at what the complaint or the issue is, and that's when the process starts if there are non-compliances. We can appreciate the fact that you've done some repairs to the property, but I guess my question is, don't get me wrong, from this picture, it doesn't look bad, but the kudzu on the back and any of that, and probably the inside. Do we have any pictures of the inside, Mr. Brooks? That.
Okay.
No.
That has been removed, but it has grown back. I just paid someone last month, but it's poison ivy, so I have to have it treated. So to get that removed again, because I just paid someone to have that removed.
And I hear you, and Chair, I'm going to let you go ahead and do your due diligence, but and I'm sure the Chair is going to address this, we got to have a timeline. We got to have a timeline if we're going to let this go a little bit further in order for you to repair it and to complete these items per, you know, and we do this, but it's not like there is a long time because this property has been vacant for so long. So, Madam Chair.
Mr. McIntyre.
First of all, I got a question about the photos that we're seeing. These photos are not the same as the ones that we have in our
Right.
packet.
These photos are
These-
as of
Yeah.
These are
today.
today, so these are older, so
Right.
this is more current. Okay. And does the list of code deficiencies reflect the 2010 inspection? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and just a question for the owner. Well, maybe this is for staff. Do we have any tracking of complaints from the neighborhood? I mean, what are the surrounding property owners? Have we had any input from them? Because part of the reason
No.
we're talking about this is its impact.
We
on
would
the
not,
surrounding-
I wouldn't have access to that information.
City.
If there are complaints, we would have to go back into the system to
Right.
access whether or not there were complaints over the years.
Right. And my last question would be for you, is that we're now dealing with this, it's been vacant for 13 years.
Yes.
Is there a plan of action?
There is a plan of action.
Is there funding to carry out the plan?
That's funding to carry out the plan. That's funding to carry out the plan, and it will be completed.
Do you
Done.
do you think, Ms. Caldwell, that that can be, the work can be completed in 90 days, 3 months?
Well, yes, it's going to have to be to save the property. So yes, I'm going to.
All right.
So yes.
So may I hear then from the committee to move approval of this, that 90 days?
Move approval, Madam Chair, of the 90 days to complete the repairs to the property.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the staff will be, Mr. Brooks will be checking on the progress
Yes, and for clarity, that's a 90-day delay on the demolition.
demolition.
Do we bring it back after 90 days if it's not complete, or are you approving the demolition and a cancellation if it's repaired within the 90 days?
Let's bring it back within 90 days if it's not complete. Otherwise, it will, it will be done, and everybody will be happy. It'll save
All
the
right.
property. It's a
Thank you.
darling house, it is.
So
Thank you.
excuse me, but if it's repaired within the 90 days, it's not coming back to us?
No.
Just a point of clarification. So you're actually approving the order as presented by staff to go to full council on Monday the 15th? Okay. Just want to make sure.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. Caldwell.
Thank you.
And good luck with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Now I'm a little confused on that one. So the order as is, it's a 90-day repair or demolish order, correct?
It is.
So that means that if it's not repaired within the 90 days, that it will be demolished. But I heard the chair state that she wanted it to come back to the committee if it,
Well, if we don't need to, if it's not done, then we don't need to bring it back. I misstated that. Did you get that?
I understood that you were basically, or the committee was approving the request of staff, which is the 90-day order
To
go forward
repair.
council for approval.
Yeah.
And so if it's approved by city council and the repairs are made within that time, then the order will be rescinded.
right.
But if it's not, if the repairs are not made within that time, then staff will proceed with demolition.
Demolition.
Yes.
Right.
No need to bring it back.
I wanted
her to be
to be
clear.
clear on that because I don't think it was clear. I just wanted to make sure she understood.
I understand. the
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next one is C3B that Councilmember McIntosh wanted to speak to.
Mr. Brooks, can I get a little further report on this property?
This property is located at 836 North Cameron Avenue. A complaining notice of hearing was issued against the property on May 21st of 2014. And on June 30th, a repair or vacate order was issued. The property was vacant and secure as of August 10th, 2014. The estimated cost to repair this structure is $27,199, while the fair market value of the structure is $10,000. Therefore, the cost to repair exceeds 65% of the value of the structure. Based on that information, we recommend that the ordinance to demolish be adopted.
Michelle McCall is not here, is she?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I'm not sure who I asked this question of. There's been some conversation from local preservation group, Preserve Historic Forsyth, about finding a way to not tear this building down. It is a contributing structure in a National Register district. It has apparently been a problem for the neighbors, so we have some time pressure on that side. I've spoken with Councilmember Montgomery about the possibility of doing an in-rem program on this, but I'm not familiar enough with that program, and I'd like to get a little bit more information from you on how that functions.
The in-rim repair is a process whereby if the repairs can be made for the cost or less than what is anticipated for the demolition, then we can proceed to make the repairs and place an assessment against the property. So I think the cost on this was,
27.
estimated cost to repair is $27,000,
27.2.
which demolition would probably $5,000-6,000 at the most.
Okay. And is the fair market value as it's calculated here is as is or repaired? $10,000.
That's as is.
Okay.
Has there been any correspondence from the owners?
Pardon?
Has there been any correspondence from the owners?
No, the owners have not contacted the office
And
and
we're
responded to any of the notices.
confident the notices are reaching.
We have not received return mail, so in the absence of not receiving return mail, we assume that it is received.
And this is over how long a period?
The initial inspection was, looks like May of
May.
2014.
Do we know if the owners are local?
The address for the owners, 1815 East 18th Street,
Yeah.
local.
I recall this being singled out as the only contributing property in historic district on today's list. If there's no one here from our historic agencies, we could hold it over to our October meeting and inquire whether there's any interest in acquiring the property and restoring it. That's it.
Certainly a possibility. Yes.
As a councilman there, I'm not in favor of holding this in committee. Actually, I have a meeting in that neighborhood tonight. If it's held, I'll make sure I direct all phone calls to the committee in reference to that, because if we're not going to address it in some form of in-realm based upon the standards of that, I know, and I'm sure here again in that neighborhood tonight, in the sense of the pressure in terms of dealing with housing and housing conditions within the neighborhood. Understanding the contributing factors and where it stands there as a historic nature. It's also the additional fact of individuals who live in the neighborhood who have to look at and deal with all of the things that come along with that. And so if we're not able to find what's necessary to address the issues, to me, I think it leaves only the option that staff has presented. But I was open to the fact of if we could do in-realm in some sort, that was an option that I was looking at, that if we could do that, that was something that I was open to. But as stated, that's set up only if it's not over the cost of demolition. Are there any other things that could be done in that same sense to address this that would give the city opportunity that if those dollars aren't recouped, that the city would be able to take possession of property?
As of today, that would be the only other available tool that we have, absent of being able to communicate with the owners, and then the owners' willingness to follow through with rehab assistance. So it's still an option,
Yeah.
even if we were to contact the owners, as to whether or not they were willing to follow through with the financial assistance that could be made available.
Jeff?
The clock on this one would be a 90-day clock as well?
There is no clock on this. As it stands, it's do it now. So we could impose a clock and ask staff to try to reach out to the owners and to the Historic Resources, Preserve Historic Versailles.
Yeah. I'm very torn. I've been on both sides of this on a couple of occasions, having been in a neighborhood and had a property that was clearly a drag on everybody else's property values. I think we need to do, as a community, not necessarily as a city, but I think as a community, we need to do a better job of being prepared for when these properties come up. That way we're not faced with going against the neighborhood's wishes versus preservation, and we're not there yet. So when would the bulldozers roll on this place?
Mr. Page just called to my attention that there is another tool under the eminent domain process. There is a process whereby we may be able to obtain title to the property. If I recall, that's a 2-year process that we would have to wait.
Yeah.
And then we could obtain title to the property and work with some nonprofit who would then be willing to assume title to the property after it was purchased and then rehab it and make it available. But again, that is a 2-year process.
Yeah, that's, yes,
And that's a 2-year process with no repairs done to the property.
That's correct.
boarded up, yeah.
Not a viable option.
I'm not.
So my question again is, when would a bulldozer actually roll on this place?
This is 65%. We would, if approved on Monday, it would be demolished within the next 90 days. That would give us time to do the appropriate environmental testing and secure bids, and that process takes anywhere from 60 to 90 days. But it would be ready to be bulldozed in about 90 days.
So if a group, if someone were to come in that was acceptable to the neighborhood and wanted to buy this and do the rehab on it, within that period of time, it's possible that the building could be saved.
When you say do the rehab, complete the rehab, or
Well,
make,
the
a
items-
commitment, make a commitment to do the rehab?
That's a good question. I would think that the commitment to do the rehab would be part of the conversation about, it would have to be a qualified group to do it, and I know we've done RFPs on things before. I think you'd have to have a pretty strong proposal from an
There
applicant.
have been some occasions in the past where we have worked with groups on that basis, and what we've required them to do is to provide evidence that they have sufficient funds available, and it is made available expressly for this purpose, and they have the wherewithal to do it. We haven't done that, if I recall, in over 10 years, but we have done that in the long past.
Could that be done alongside the process of testing for asbestos, so that if a group did not step forward, did not present the right credentials, that it wouldn't affect the 90-day period? Yeah.
Yes, it could all
It could
occur
all be concurrent?
simultaneously.
Wouldn't that depend upon the group being able to make contact with the
Yeah,
property?
the owner's got to be
Exactly.
willing.
That would be that would be incumbent on the group to do that.
Would you like?
I would be in favor of that, but that's not even something we really would have to vote on. That would all take place outside of our process.
Well, we would have to vote on this.
Right,
And,
right, right.
and within the 90 days. Derwin first.
This is a legal question in terms of, and maybe Mr. Brooks, you all have a understanding as well, but are there any additional avenues in terms of acquiring the property, let's say whether it is an outside group or another entity that would like to acquire the property based upon the property, quote unquote, being abandoned and not being able to have any contact with the property, anything out there in terms of how?
Well, I guess if we decided to do the, council decided to do the MREM procedure, then you place a lien on the property, and if the lien is not paid off, you go through the foreclosure process and attempt to acquire it that way and then sell it, then that's also a long, drawn process.
But the property gets repaired.
But that would mean the city basically putting in the money to do the repairs through the MREM process. And it's something but short of that, in the eminent domain procedure, I'm not aware of anything.
And I know, again, based upon our current standard on in-realm, this is outside of the number, but what is a normal time frame in terms of payment not received, then foreclosure takes place?
Probably a revenue question, I'm not sure. I know they send the invoices to the property owner. I suspect they give them some period of time. I'm just not sure of that.
My experience is generally a 5-year period. They allow for assessments to be paid, and there's some requirement that some type of payment have to be made yearly.
And that assessment would have to be confirmed by council first, and then you start the payment process. But if they don't come to the table to work out a payment process, I don't know how long they wait for the person to come to the table.
Okay.
But the challenge here would be, as you noted, it falls outside of the process in terms of the law.
Yep.
Mr. Besser.
Some combination of comments and questions. This is one of those where the clearly you've done an internal inspection, because most of the more serious items are internal repair need references. To look at it from the outside, except for the fact nobody's taking care of the grounds, it doesn't look beyond saving. Councilmember Montgomery, is this a property with a history of not being secure and creating problems for the neighborhood because people are getting into it?
If you see the picture today, that's a picture from today on there.
Yeah,
It's from today, yes.
yeah.
Okay. All right. I hadn't seen that. It wasn't in the book. If the property were secured and repairs begun, is that the kind of action that would address the immediate concerns of the neighborhood?
Well, you said
Is it
secured and repaired, I think.
And repairs begun.
That's a different conversation than the property sitting there vacant.
This has what's the difference between we're currently asking for here and a repair or demolish order? This is,
It has to do with the level.
Didn't hear the question.
right, we're looking for a demolition order. What's the difference between that and a repair or demolish?
Demolition would occur, a repair order would allow for 90 days. The owner would have 90 days, another 90-day period to repair or demolish. The demolition order, we would start demolition process immediately after it's adopted by council, the ordinance.
Let me see if I can answer that for you. This particular case, because of the nature of the violations, and the fact that the repairs exceed 65% of the value, it's a higher demolition case. So the opportunity to repair is basically short, unlike the case you just looked at where it's 90 days. But the repairs are the amount needed to make the repairs.
Because if we approve this, there's nothing that would stop somebody from contacting the owners, putting a plan together, coming to the neighborhood, presenting that plan, getting...
To staff, yeah, okay.
Okay.
They would just need to be in contact with Community and Business Development
okay.
to make sure that their time frame is consistent or
Right.
in line with theirs.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but understand, the process would start immediately after the order is adopted Monday night.
Right.
Would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to move for approval of that.
Okay, move approval of the staff's recommendation. Do I have a second?
Staff recommendation is not 90 days.
No, it starts immediately, but it will take a
Demolish.
good 90 days.
Well, no. Help.
What I explained was the general process it would take, but the order that would be adopted, if approved, would be to start demolition immediately after the order is adopted. If the process is quicker than the 90 days, it would be demolished before 90 days.
Right. So that's what I was saying. I wasn't sure if that was.
There's no guarantee
But
that there's going to be a 90-day period.
There will be some time
I
frame.
second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Silence equals consent in this case.
Okay, all right. So that takes care of the consent agenda. Let's go to the general agenda, please.
Item G1, resolution approving the Arts Council of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County Sculpture Walk Initiative.
Okay, Evan, you're going to do this?
Yes.
Great.
Good afternoon, Chairman Light and members of the committee. The city was approached by the Arts Council with a proposal for a sculpture walk in the Central Business District. I actually have Jim Sparrow of the Arts Council here to give you a little bit more information about their proposal, so I'll ask him to come up at this time.
Okay. If you'll give us your name and address.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Jim Sparrow. I'm the president of the Arts Council, 206 Spruce Street. And thanks for a few minutes of your time. What I'm asking is and proposing is a sculpture walk. It is based on the prototypes that have been quite successful in Grand Rapids with Arts Prize, which has become an international event, and Sioux Falls project, which is what I'm proposing we start with, which has now become a large regional and national event as well. The project really is like nothing else that's happening in the Southeast and gives us an opportunity in Winston-Salem to have the advantages of having a large public art exhibition that is juried in a way that really costs very little for the community, except the benefit of bringing people in to see those pieces and becoming a regional showcase for that type of work. I do have $25,000 committed towards the project if it were to move forward, and the initial budget for this would be approximately $50,000 with 20 to 25 pieces in the first installation. It could potentially grow to be a much larger event, spreading into various neighborhoods and becoming a brand for the city as we talk about becoming City of Arts and Innovation on a national level, but also an opportunity, I think, to have a regional or potentially national event bringing attention to what we're talking about as it relates to the other pieces of public art that are being pushed and moved forward. The last thing I'll say is I think the one thing about this particular concept, we're not asking for funds from the city, but are trying to do this in partnership with the intentions that the city has indicated they're interested in looking at. But also this is a small microcosm of how we might do something larger as we look at larger, how do we put a committee together that's diverse and representative, including artists in the community? How do we deal with some of those issues such as placement and various other things with right-of-way and easement that we have to deal with on a regular basis? And the beautiful thing is these pieces don't stay. They come for a period of time and then go back. So we don't have to talk about long-term maintenance or liability the same way. So that's my proposal. I do have a piece that I'll leave for members of council to look at that gives you an idea of what Sioux Falls has done, and this is really what I'm proposing that we try to move forward with.
Does anyone have a question of Mr. Sparrow? Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Sparrow. As you've just stated that you would put together or convene a group or committee from the community to help with this process, when do you think that might happen? Because, you know, and maybe, Chair, we may need to see where these locations are going to be. I don't know what the committee wants, but I would think that the council would want to see where they're going to put these pieces, because we have a lot of people that are now coming to us wanting to do things, and we don't want to make downtown or the city, and we know you wouldn't, as we would say, cluttered.
Right.
But we need to be very cognizant now as we're moving forward on all of these different initiatives that citizens are bringing us, which are good for the city. We just need to understand and know where they're going, much like the creative corridors and that concept. Sure. But I think it's a great idea. I think anything that we can do to, again, bring tourism and citizens downtown or even to the city, I think it's a great thing.
Jim, I know it's very early in the process, but have you done any preliminary or come up with any preliminary numbers on how many out-of-town visitors you expect from this once it's up?
The safe visit number is probably somewhere between 25 and 50,000, but normally the sculpture walk would be up over 6 months in terms of the period of time. So that is a collective number. I think it has greater impact if it's paired and launched at a time when we already have traffic that can enhance that, such as the Black Repertory Festival, River Run, what might happen with the tennis tournament. There's an opportunity to pair this in a way that brings a lot of attention. And what I would say we initially were looking at in terms of location to start this was trying to tie the Spruce Street corridor down 5th Street to Trade Street. One of the things this would be is also an attempt to try to connect some neighborhoods in the first pass as we begin to look at that. So we would not necessarily have at the moment location. We would work with the city in terms of various issues regarding right-of-way and placement, but would be flexible in terms of how we would actually do this and using it as a prototype, not necessarily something that could not be flexed depending on what worked for the city and the clutter and or the residents or entrepreneurs on the street.
Mr. Bessie?
Yeah, I think this is an intriguing concept, and I don't see any reason to slow down its development. I think there are a couple of items that are necessarily implied when you're talking about public locations that I'd just like to have explicitly referenced in the resolution, and then I'd be comfortable moving forward with it. And they've been touched on, basically. One is that locations for display and pedestal design, you know, to be selected in consultation with, say, Public Works, and subject to final approval by the City Council. And then the other, since we don't have the ultimate process for, screening and selection. I'd just say display pieces selected subject to review and approval by the city manager for suitability for the locations selected. Just the general concepts involved. You know art when you see it, and I'm not sure I do so. But assuming we can get those concepts explicit in the resolution, I'm comfortable moving.
Okay. Will you make the motion, please?
Yeah.
A second?
Second.
Okay. In favor?
Aye.
Again, one comment. I just want to make sure to what Councilmember Bessie said. I do, just like Public Works, we need to, as you said, move forward to council. We got to know where these locations are going to be based on, again, all of the things that we'll keep hearing about what we're doing downtown, running through Public Works, public safety, all of that, so that the people, the businesses, and the citizens are okay with these locations.
Yeah.
Then I'm okay with it.
My concept was that you'd develop a set of proposals working in the Arts Council and Public Works, and then the council would have the final say.
All right.
On the
Thank you.
All right. Jim, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item G2, resolution recommending internet service sites to AT&T as part of ultra high-speed fiber network.
Dennis, how are you?
Good afternoon, Councilmember Light, members of council. I'm back today to talk about the item related to AT&T in the city for the build-out of a high-speed fiber network to both residences and businesses in the city. In that agreement, AT&T is to provide the city a number of free services to small and mid-sized businesses, to the apartment complexes, low-income complexes, and community centers. I provided a list of recommended sites to be given to AT&T for council's review and approval. I've been asked to add some additional information, which has been provided to you this month. Glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I believe, Dee Dee, you had some questions about some of the sites. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Thank you, Mr. Newman. Again, and maybe, I don't know whether we did this or not, again, the way the process was done, and again, thank you to your staff. I'm just wondering, did we reach out, make sure that we had communicated this to any MWBEs? I know it may be a couple in here, but I think Councilmember Bessie, Councilmember Clark, and I were at the Black Chamber meeting just last week, and they were they didn't know anything about it, and one of the complaints that they had, as Councilmember Bessie would know too, is that they have small businesses, but they don't have access to internet, faster, speedier internet. So again, I see I appreciate the matrix with the chamber member notation, and I only see like maybe 5, 6. I see more on this side, but again, I'm just concerned with, did we really reach out to some of the smaller businesses that really, really need this? Those companies that have been in business forever. I'm not calling anybody out, but IMG, I would expect IMG to have internet. I would expect the Dairy Fresh, it used to be the Seal Test on Patterson, I would expect them to have fast internet. I would expect that. And maybe I'm the only council member with that concern. I'm just, and I saw in here where the Sideworks for the North Ward, which is presently in the North Ward, but everybody knows they're moving downtown, so that doesn't count for me,
In looking at the list and in the agreement itself, my understanding of our intention when we entered into the agreement is, as it says here, in terms of the community benefit that the city gets in exchange for its commitment related to the right-of-way. And so, as we see this and these lists of things that exist here, I think there's some good things there, but to the point in their build-out of the ultra-high-speed fiber network, that the community benefit will more so lean, in my opinion, to those who may normally not be able to access and pay for. But as AT&T builds out the ultra-high-speed fiber network in other areas, those who are able to pay and can afford that are able to foot that. Now, if we're looking at this in a way to incentivize some of the businesses that exist there in that way, then say that, let me understand it from that way, and not necessarily in the sense of just saying we're looking at it from a community benefit standpoint. So if that's how we're piecing it, then I understand that picture. But as it's looking at just community benefit, the list that's there, I don't see it as necessarily serving those, the total list serving those who wouldn't necessarily have the chance to access those. And I know I said a whole lot, but one more thing just to say on that is on some of those centers, like community centers and things that exist there, will that just be access within that center, or how far out is it Wi-Fi? Will it go out beyond the walls of the location there, or?
I do know that some of the centers have Wi-Fi, which would extend beyond the walls of the community center. If that's available, then yes, those services will be available outside the walls as far as the Wi-Fi extended.
Okay, and the reason I ask that, because some of the, some of the centers and then even some of the churches that exist there, they're in neighborhoods that could benefit from it. And I don't know how strong of a signal, if you did Wi-Fi, how far out that could benefit from having the services, and if.
Yeah, free Wi-Fi is another conversation, which is have discussed that with AT&T, and there's possibilities that that could come about as a separate initiative from this. One of the considerations in identifying the businesses was to those that would make a difference if they had a gigabit speed as compared to the typical speeds available today via the internet. And a very small business, 2-3 individuals, unless they were doing something very exceptional related to computing, would make a difference in the service they receive. So the type of businesses you'll see on the list, try to identify those that the very high speed would make a difference.
Okay. Mr. Bessie?
I just want to confirm something. There's no anticipation that the business locations are going to be publicly accessible in terms of.
That's correct.
So I mean, it's good to have the service available for business in the community, but unless there's a means test involved in selection of the businesses, which I don't think is the case, is there a reason that we're categorizing that as a public benefit?
I really can't speak. I wouldn't want to pass judgment on that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the publicly available community center access is, qualifies. But, other than, this is an interesting look at who's getting signed up first. I'm not sure that I can go to another business in my district and say, the guys down the street get free internet, high-speed connection. Aren't you glad?
Yeah, it's very difficult to make that judgment call. And, the process that we use, frankly, started with a relatively objective organization to give us the initial list, which we then added to and made sure that, to the best of our ability, there was extension relative to coverage across the city, and that it included the type of businesses that would benefit from the service.
Thank you.
There are, in fact, some mistakes about locations, or not mistakes. These entities and businesses do move or plan to move, so that's bound to happen. Jeff, did you have something?
I just had a question about what are the services that are going to be provided free? Is it merely the installation cost, or is it an ongoing?
For the small and mid-sized business, it's the installation cost.
Okay, so it's a one-time shot.
Correct. Correct. For the community centers, though, it's ongoing service.
Right, right. But for small businesses, it's a $300 to $500.
Whatever the range is,
benefit.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? And I know I'm late to the thing, but I'm not one of y'all. But in order for one of these folks to get the connection, they're going to run the wire down the road to them,
That's accurate.
which would allow people to pull off of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, again, I will remind council that even though we're providing this list to AT&T, there's no commitment on their part to go to any one of the recommended businesses. They will go to those that are in the neighborhood as to where their build-out plan will be.
I happen to own a business that doesn't have a wire that goes down the road, and we have very, very limited access. And we would hope that some big business further out of town would want it, they would run the wire down the road, and then we could pull off from it.
That would happen.
But what they're really offering is a fairly nominal benefit if it's just a couple $100 to run the wire to the building.
Yes.
To me, the benefit is they're running the wires down the main roads.
Yeah. And from a business benefit, it creates opportunity for these businesses to buy services.
Yeah, okay.
But they could go spend $500 and get that same benefit.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
One more comment. I guess I would feel better if the free internet was ran to community centers or places where the public can get to it, whether it's the Renolda Library, whether it's Brown Douglas, whether it's Haynes Hosiery, because everyone knows the library downtown is going to close, right? I just would feel better if we're getting something, we agreed to partner with AT&T. In my ward, I don't know about the other council members, I would rather see the community centers or places where people go that can't afford or don't have high-speed internet. And even if that's a business that's got to send their people into a community center 2 hours a day to do work that they couldn't do at the office, I don't feel comfortable with this.
If I made to that point, we fully agreed that that was the objective in finding the list. And the city currently has a project underway. You're familiar with the fiber initiative related to Department of Transportation, the DOT traffic signal system. And with that project, all the recreation centers, community centers that are not on this list will have fiber and will have that free service that you're referring to. So the reason they're not on this list is we purposely excluded them so that we wouldn't double up and could give benefit to other sites.
Why didn't you tell us that, Dennis? You got me up here
Got her all upset.
spinning my wheels. But when is that going to happen? When is that supposed to happen? When is it?
That may happen before 18th.
Before this happens?
Yeah.
Dennis, you should have told
It's
us.
under construction, what he's talking
You
about.
should have told us that.
Oh, but any other comments? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move approval?
I'll second.
And I'd just comment that as far as I'm concerned, because it's clearly of a public benefit nature, that the community centers are the priority.
Yes, absolutely. That's all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Dennis.
Item G3, resolution adopting the proposed South Central Winston-Salem area plan update.
Oh, this is South Central. This is you
And
A little bit of
Jeff.
me.
and Jeff
A little bit of
and you.
southwest, one corner.
G4.
One little corner.
It's like I'm in all of
Oh, yeah.
North Central.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Marco.
I'm going to update you on the work we have completed on the South Central Area Plan. Kelly Bennett, with our planning staff, is here too. Just the general boundaries. We have Northwest Boulevard, Haynes Park. Then the downtown is here, Broad Street. I don't know if, of course, you're not seeing that.
need high-speed internet.
Does that do anything? Have phones yet at your place?
They got cans with string.
We got pigeons with messages.
Game of Thrones.
Okay. All right. So on the Northwest Boulevard, here's the downtown, Broad Street, Business 40, US 52, I-40, and Peters Creek Parkway, pretty much the boundaries of the area. We have completed the process. We had 4 community meetings, started in February. The planning board had a public hearing last month, and they recommended approval of the plan. And so we're ahead on that process. We had some good community participation, and I want to thank Councilmember Light and Councilmember McIntosh for coming to some of the meetings. They were well attended, and we had some very good comments from the community. This is an update, and so, the last plan was adopted in 2003, and so we started looking at the changes, what has happened in the area in the last 10 years, and we found really a good number of projects. Those projects could be categorized into new development, infill, residential as well as commercial, some mixed use, a number of projects also on the rehabilitation as the West Salem Shopping Center, and adaptive reuse, the other 3, the Washington Park, the condominiums, and the West End Millworks. So that together with the existing neighborhoods where a number of National Register districts are in place now, and the preservation and revitalization of these neighborhoods has been a top priority. And so those things are consistent with what Legacy 2030 proposes for the urban neighborhoods. And so the plan builds up on that, continuing the trend that I just mentioned on the preservation of neighborhoods, encouraging quality infill, adaptive reuse, and promoting mixed use, and looking at the older commercial areas, as well as providing transportation options. So I'm just going to show you a few of the recommendations. This is the proposed land use, and to make it easier for everybody to see what's been changed, we also have the proposed land use change on the right. As is customary for all the area plans, we work on activity centers. These are commercial areas that are intended to serve the surrounding neighborhoods. The boundaries, the proposed land use, basic recommendations for those are all included. Let me just highlight a few recommendations, looking at the West End Activity Center where the West End Millworks is, this development over here. There is some vacant and underutilized land. And so the plan recognizes that and proposes some new development along West End Boulevard as well as Broad Street. And looking at a connection, here's the West End Millworks, and here's the Chatham building, which is under renovation, so a possible connection among those, and adding new vitality to the neighborhood with some new businesses, the pedestrian connection, cleaning up the creek. That's something that it's included in the plan. Another area is the Piedmont International University. Some portions of the campus are for sale. This particular one has been sold, and after the planning board recommended adoption of the plan, we're hearing some potential for adding some commercial land uses over here, so you'll probably hear about this at the public hearing. But I wanted to concentrate on this larger piece. As I said, the university is selling individual lots, but there is also the possibility for selling the entire campus. And so redevelopment of these in the West Salem neighborhood really becomes crucial. So we look at the northern portion, this area here. It has this open space that really is an asset to the neighborhood. It has some 2-3-story buildings surrounding this vacant piece of tract. So there is a good possibility that it may be developed in the future with some townhouse or apartments, maybe having some first floor commercial. And so we're just showing this as a potential infill for the area. Did some renderings kind of showing the possibility of having first floor commercial apartments over maybe reusing an historic structure for a restaurant or something like that. But really keeping the common area in between those two developments. Challenges we found on the Washington Park Activity Center, and this is not just for that particular area, but it happens in all the activity centers in urban neighborhoods, that we do have some appearance and visual impact of certain uses, particularly auto-related uses. And so we had a good discussion on that, and what came out of that is we are going to look at maybe creating a low-impact commercial district. This could be done either creating a new district or amending, which is what we think is the best. But it is on our work program, so we're going to be looking at that, and we'll be coming to you with some ideas for the Washington Park, keeping in mind that this may have impacts on some other commercial areas throughout the city. Institutions. This area has a good number of institutions. They provide vitality to the neighborhoods, and some of them do have plans to expand, whether they're private or they have been made public. We basically work with the ones we knew, Old Salem, particularly this tract of land north of Salem Avenue and Broad Street, where they're really hoping to recreate the Stockburger farmhouse. So the plan supports that, but it also gives the opportunity, if it doesn't happen, to have other, it has other recommendations for this particular area. But the one we really concentrated and did talk quite extensively with the community was the expansion of the School of the Arts. They're planning on replacing a couple old dorms and maybe building them along Sunnyside Avenue. And as you know, this is a historic National Register district, and the school is surrounded by those National Register districts, so it presents problems in their expansion plan. So we did talk to the neighborhood and with the school officials, and kind of got to some basic agreements for the boundaries of the campus, limiting the campus use provision to certain areas, keeping some single-family structures along Main Street, so there is a better relationship between Washington Park and the School of the Arts, and really discuss quite a bit in detail Sunnyside Avenue, where eventually they're thinking in taking out contributing structures to do the student housing. So the plan really, the main recommendation is to keep those structures, to discourage the demolition. But this is not a locally designated district, so there is no review by the HRC. So the plan stresses the need for the School of the Arts to comply with all federal and state laws when they do this development. Also talk about what will be taking place, and Ronald McDonald House was a good example. They liked it, where the building is broken down into smaller pieces. It is more residentially in character. Parking is located to the back, and they seem pretty, they like the concept, and so we'll keep on working with them when the plans come along. Transportation, you're all aware of the two main transportation improvements. Salem Creek Connector has been built, and we're still working on business road improvements, finalizing the details. But they spent some time on the Peters Creek Parkway Corridor study. A consultant has completed the study, and there's a proposal to turn it into a 4-lane, 35-mile-an-hour road, and with sidewalks, with path and landscaping. So that presents an opportunity for making improvements along this corridor, which, by the way, it is identified in Legacy as a growth corridor. So we look at the boundaries, made some recommendations, or the plan makes recommendations, type of developments, what type of form, decided that the urban form is the most appropriate at this location. And it went a little farther ahead in recommending some standards based upon the two zoning overlay districts that we currently have, the downtown and the Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. So those standards are there for new development. The direction we got from the planning board is to complete all the area plans, and then there will be a decision as to whether overlay districts will be included for the growth corridors. So we went ahead and developed those for future reference. And this is just an example of how it may look. This is the existing Winston-Salem shopping center, but if you have some new development facing the street, it just creates a totally different character for the street. And we're talking about 35 miles an hour, so it's not that fast. Other recommendations, including the streetcar, the urban circulator, looking at a connection between pedestrian connection between Baptist Hospital and the downtown. That's the business 40 multi-use path, some new sidewalks and bike lanes, parks, depending on the bond referendum, improvements to Haynes Park. The Gateway Nature Center is located here, and there are a number of proposed greenways for the area. Now, in terms of historic resources, this area has everything that you can think of. It's just I mean, you go to very few areas are actually not within some sort of designation, so it is an asset, and it is something that it's sort of unique for this particular area. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Marco?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you talk to the School of the Arts?
Yes.
Get their input?
Yes, we work with them closely, particularly with Jim DeCristo, facilities manager. Well, that's not exactly his title, but yeah, he was involved through all the process.
Have they endorsed what we're recommending?
This is what we work on the plan with them. The chancellor came on board. They were going to update him on the plan. We don't know if that has happened and whether he's going to by their general master plan concept, so we're still waiting on that. And so basically, most of the discussions were centered about the possible expansion of the student housing.
Am I not correct, Marco, that even if the school discusses with the neighborhood and with us, the fact remains that they are a creature of the state and therefore can pretty much do what they want to do?
Absolutely, that is correct. Yes. It is not a locally designated district, so there is no review by any board.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Question in reference to the area located in the Happy Hill area there. The section seemingly changes use from single-family residential as what has already started in terms of the development that started as part of the Hope 6 project there, and then it changes as the land use for low-density attached residential. So I'm thinking, help me understand, is that more so townhome kind of a concept?
What we look at was density and the overall density. That tract of land is on RM18, so it allows 18 units per acre. But if you look at the existing townhouses and the apartments, plus the single-family homes, the overall density is going to be around 8 units per acre, which is moderate. So that's what is colored in that peachy color.
So if just help me. So if they continue, if developing in a manner as it has been, particularly on those lots there where there have been single-family housing, that would be in line with what exists here?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you have something?
Yeah, first I wanted to pay a compliment to staff. I mean, as usual in these things, I think you guys did a great job. I know the outreach was significant. I know participation was quite good, and there were groups that had strong opinions about quite a few things, and so I really appreciate the job that you guys did sort of weaving this together. I also wanted to recognize in the Happy Hill area, the fact that the zoning is currently RM18 and the plan calls for RM8 wouldn't preclude somebody from coming in and doing single-family development if they wanted to. That's right. But overall, I just want to say a very good job. Well done. Thank you.
Anything else? I also appreciate all the work that was done. Thank you very much. And I think we managed this one without too much controversy. Yes.
There's one last question on the same area. Was the housing authority consulted in terms, because the two largest landowners on that section is the city and the housing authority?
We knew of the plans, and we follow basically, what they have. I mean, the lotting pattern has been, it is in place, and pretty much the multifamily, except for maybe one piece, has been built, and so all is left is the single family plus some townhouses on, I forgot the name of the street now.
Alder?
Yes. Yeah. Which is, it's on their current plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this will go to council next week?
October 6th.
October.
There will be a public hearing. We'll advertise it, and it will be a public hearing, yes.
Do we need to recommend that you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Is there a motion on this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Marco, thanks a lot. Okay.
Item G4, discussion of city policy extending same-sex domestic partner benefits.
This item is for the committee's information only. It involves an administrative action for the city to recognize all marriage licenses from any state or jurisdiction. The letter from the Human Resources Department to the employees of the city explaining the new benefits program is attached for the committee's information, and I don't know if people have access to it or not, but certainly we can share that with you. The staff is bringing this information item to the committee because, in fact, the discussion started here about same-sex benefits, and so we wanted to thank the committee for beginning this discussion and of spousal benefits for all city employees and their legal spouses. Spouses? Yeah. I'm happy that this administrative action treats all spouses and dependents equally. So I will ask if any of the committee have questions for the city manager, for the city attorney, or have a comment. Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that this action reflects what I was suggesting that the city take, and I appreciate staff working through this and determining that it was currently an option that they could legally take. Under this policy now, all married couples with one of the partners working for the city of Winston-Salem will have an opportunity to participate in personnel benefits eligibility.
It also applies to retirees as well.
Mm-hmm. And retirees as well.
Jeff, go ahead.
I've got a question. We've got plenty of lawyers in the room. While I support the policy, help me out with how we stand in terms of there being an item in the state constitution that we seem to be violating here. I mean, walk me through that, how we're not, as council people, violating the state constitution.
Well, I think had this action happened before the Fourth Circuit opinion, along with the AG's opinion, I think it would have been premature for council or actually for staff to take this action. But in light of the Fourth Circuit opinion, which North Carolina is part of the Fourth Circuit, and that opinion is binding on North Carolina, recognizing, of course, it addressed a marriage ban in Virginia, but North Carolina has a similar marriage ban. So for those cases in North Carolina, the courts would basically follow that decision. But because of that decision in the Fourth Circuit and the AG statement that it is not going to enforce this, North Carolina's constitutional amendment, or constitutional provision, banning same-sex marriages and the recognition of those marriages issued by other states, because the AG has taken that opinion or position, I feel comfortable that the city is okay, relying on that Fourth Circuit opinion and relying on the AG's opinion. Now, had city taken the position before that occurred, I think it would have been definitely premature.
So are you saying that we're violating the state constitution, but I'm probably not going to get sued over it?
I can't say you're not going to get sued over it, but what I can tell you is that you have a basis for asserting that the NC constitutional provision is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
So I think as a lawyer, I mean, when we recognize there are issues with our laws and that there's a chance that it's unconstitutional, we're safe in taking action based upon that belief. And I think council is safe in taking action based upon that belief. I mean, you have, again, the Fourth Circuit opinion as well as the opinion of the AG.
Still leaves me a little bit of heartburn.
You don't want to go to jail. Okay. Dan, did you have
Yeah, I would just say that as an advocate, it was my opinion that if a North Carolina court interpreted the state constitutional provision in a way that prohibited the city from taking this step, that a federal judicial review would have struck down that interpretation. Basically would have said that the state constitutional provision, if interpreted in that fashion, ran afoul of federal constitutional provisions. And that was a topic of discussion between myself and other attorneys, but given the action of the Fourth Circuit, which has binding jurisdiction over North Carolina courts, that seems now to be a settled question.
Yeah, thank you.
Any official, including ourselves, that takes oath of office in North Carolina or any other state says first that we will do what's constitutional under the U.S. Constitution, and if there is another provision of law that demonstrably varies from the U.S. Constitution, then it's simply superseded.
Thank you. If there, yes.
I just want to make a comment, and I probably said this before when this came before us. I'm proud to be a Winstonian. The day has come that we have to realize the world has changed as we know it. And I know everybody's mindset is not where some of us are, but it's okay because we're not where some of the other people are. But in the end of it, after seeing a comedian the other night on television said, it's about what's right, and it's about human rights. It has nothing to do with the sex and the age and the race and all of this other stuff. It's about what's right. And I'm very supportive of this. And I applaud our staff and our city attorney and her staff for, and our HR, Ms. Carmen Carew, and her staff too, for helping us through this process and to be able to do this as expeditiously as we have. Thank you.
If there are no other comments and no other items, Mr. City Manager, anything you need to say? No, this is not a public hearing, but certainly next week at City Council, if you do have comments, those will be welcome in the public comment period. This item doesn't go to city council because it's an administrative issue. But there is the public comment period. So, you're welcome to come to that. So.
Our question is, as the discussion ended, there was a presumption that discussions were going to be continued on the domestic partner piece, not out-of-state licensure. Has it been that issue, or is that still on the table for discussion?
No, it is not, because certainly, and I'm giving you my opinion, that if we did discuss this, if benefits were provided to same-sex partners, it would have to be provided to heterosexual partners, dates, live-in togethers. That would get totally out of hand and be impossible to regulate. So, yeah.
Can I just let you know what's going on? At the second city council meeting, which is the third Monday of each month, we do have a public comment period at the end of the meeting where anyone can get up and talk about anything that's relevant, and that's what
yeah, certainly you're very welcome. Yeah. So, okay. I will close this meeting, and we'll have Public Works in about 10 minutes.